Today, for the media that are here, my name is Mark Arcand. Please don't use my title. And the reason I say that is because it's not about myself or my title. This is about my family. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of our friends and supporters that are here today. We have our Mayor, Charlie Clark, some of his council. We have Chief Darcy Bear from Whitecap, Dakota First Nation, Vice Chief Ali Bear, the FSIN, Third Vice Chief. Numerous people, our Fire Chief, Morgan Hackle. We have MLAs, Gord Wyant, Marv Friesen, David Curtin. Sorry, I'm just forgetting names right now. I apologize. Today's going to be a difficult day, and Councillor Cynthia Block. Sorry, Cynthia. For all of you here today, you're probably wondering what is going on, and today is about a day of honoring and celebrating our family's loss. Today up here with me I have Brian Burns, who's the husband of one of the victims that were murdered. I have her dad, Chuck Thomas. Good voice, sorry. So rattled today, sorry Chuck. And Sean Burns, a good family friend of our sister and our nephew. I want to start out by saying we don't want this to be glorified. We don't want this to be something that people are, thinking negatively about our family members. Our family members today, and Brian will show you a picture of his wife of 15 years, being together for 30 years, and his oldest son. So this is our sister, Bonnie Good Voice Burns, his oldest son, Gregory Burns, and in the crowd today we have Bonnie and Brian's three other boys, Dason, Mason, and Grayson. Today we're going to do a three-step process here, which is actually talk about our family members, about the people they were, so people understand the loving, caring person that Bonnie was. First and foremost, we have two communities that are very close here, which is my community, and a lot of my family are in here, aunts, uncles of Bonnie, from the Muskegon Cree Nation. We are close to the James Smith Cree Nation people, through sports, through activities, through ceremony, through everything that we've done in our lives. And right now, it's a difficult time for our families. The second piece that we're going to talk about is, I know a lot of people are out there wondering what happened. Well, honestly, we don't know. I'm going to try to piece together what I know, because I was at the scene on Sunday with Brian. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and some of it will be a little bit harsh to hear, but we're going to speak the truth. The third thing is the impact of what's happening to the other three children that are here with us today, and Brian and his family, and the support that we need for a GoFundMe page to help with some long-term trauma here. So that's kind of the three-step process. I've got my communications person here, Sean. I'm not sure if there wants to be a scrum after, but I'm asking the media to be respectful of who I am. It's not about me. Please don't use my title. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a title. This is about our family. This is about the horrible, senseless act that took one of our family members away, two of our family members away. What I want to talk about is Bonnie Lee Goodvoice. She's a member of the Wahpeton Dakota First Nation. She was a Dakota woman, and she still is a Dakota woman. In 1990, it's a long time ago, she met one of my crazy buddies here, Brian, and I don't know, but I was talking to my uncle the other day, and I said, yeah, I was talking to Brian, and he's like, who the heck's Brian? It's like, we all know him as Buggy, right? Because that sense of laughter that you're hearing right now is what Bonnie and Brian did all the time, was laugh and joke, and those are the things that we need to remember. They've been married for 15 years. She moved to the community of James Smith Cree Nation. They've got a home. They've started raising their family, which is Brian's late son here, Gregory, who is 28 years old. We've got Dason, who's 13 years old, and Mason, I think, is 11, and I was going to call him by his nickname, Pablo. Pablo, yeah. Grayson. So I don't know how he got that name, but we know him as Pablo, right? So this is how it is in our country where we grow up. It's all about relationships. It's all about family. It's all about nicknames. It's all about laughter. It's all about joy. It's all about humbleness. One of the things that I can say about my sister and Chuck's daughter and our niece and our relative, family came first, her family. We always talk about in First Nations culture the matriarchal society. She lived that. She was always at home with her children while Brian was out there working, playing sports. She was always with her family. She was the caretaker of her home. They had a beautiful home. And that's what we want people to remember her as. She's not a victim. She's a hero. And what you'll hear, secondly, is why she's a hero. And when we talk about Brian and Bonnie, it goes unnoticed for all the work that they did in their community of James Smith Cree Nation. Bonnie was working at the school for the last few years, providing for her family. She was also a foster parent. She was also a foster parent of 2 kids in her care at the time of this terrible incident. So raising about 6 kids and all the numerous kids that she helped before. She always put other people before her. That's what we want people to remember. We want people to remember how she made you laugh, how she told stories at Christmas functions, at kids' birthdays, at weddings, at celebrations. That's the reality. And when we talk about what Bronnie brought to her community, the things that I noticed the day that I was at the scene was everybody came up and talked about what she did for the James Smith community. She was married into that community. She would help volunteer at cooking, at doing whatever she had to do, and she'd make Brian come along all the time, right? Because they did things together. And when we see this and we listen we have to remember those things, because the situation that occurred shouldn't happen to anyone. No one whatsoever. You know, I sit back and I watch and I listen and I watch these things on TV, and I'm like, man, oh man, how did this happen to our family? Why did it happen? We have no answers. But what we can talk about is what family means to all of us, and what Bonnie, and I don't even know why I keep calling Gregory, because his name's Jonesy. That's how we knew him, as Jonesy. That was his nickname. And when we think about myself as her brother, I was hardly in my sister's life. She had her family, I had my family, but every time our side of the family got together, she was always there at Christmas and that kind of stuff, bringing the boys, and I'd always argue with Pablo about who's the boss is, and today he told me he's the boss, and still hasn't given me a reason why, but I understand, and I take that direction, because the most important thing to my sister and to our niece and to Brian's wife was the kids. She made every effort to provide for her family. She was sober for 15 years of her life. And those are the things we want to remember. We want to remember how she made an impact in your lives as individuals, how she made an impact in your family. And today when we sit up here, I could be replaced by any one of my family, and they know that, but I have to take on the torch of the responsibility of our family. And it's not about leadership, because when I look in this room, it doesn't matter if you have a title or not, you're all leaders of your families, of people. And we've got to remember that. We're all human. And I keep thinking about this all the time. I'm just a kid from the res. And why did this happen to our family? Why did this happen to all families? And I want to make it very clear that we're not talking about any other families here, because that's not our place, that's not our right. We're talking about our family, and I think the public needs to know who Bonnie Lee Good Voice Burns was. She was a member that made a difference in people's lives. She was a sober person. You go into her home, it was a beautiful home. It was filled with love and care. And the children always came first. And when we talk about that, we talk about our nephew, or the son, the grandson, 28-year-old boy. His life taken away from us. This young man had opportunities to work. He was fully employable. He had lots of tickets and opportunities. He was a great kid. He worked in the community. He built houses. He did whatever he could for his family, and trying to help his mom and his dad and take care of his three brothers. And those are the things we want people to recognize and remember. During this difficult time, we're just climbing a mountain now as a family, both of our communities. And that mountain is the devastation of what happened to our family member. And what it's going to take to heal from senseless acts as this that happened to our community, our family, our province, and our country. Let's not focus on what the reasons are. Let's focus on people that were taken away from each and every one of these families, our family, because that's our focus. We've got to focus on what we can do to help other people, and we've done it. This has affected our treaty territory and other treaties, Treaty 6 territory, the lands of which you all gather on today. And when I think about what the future looks like, my sister, our family members, they'd want us to move on. They'd want us to heal, but to never forget. And to carry love in your hearts, to carry compassion, to be united, to think of other people. We've shed a lot of tears in the last couple of days. But at the end of the day, we loved our sister, Brian's wife, Chuck's daughter, our niece, our nephew, our grandson, because they loved us too. And that's what we want people to remember. As difficult as it is to not show emotion, we're hurting. We're broken, but we're not defeated. This process of a family is something that is rich in all of our First Nations people. When we look at our community as Musqueam Cree Nation, James Smith Cree Nation, and all of our friends that support us from all the other First Nations in the city of Saskatoon and all the small towns, we say thank you for that. We thank you for your generosity, for your kind words, for your support, for your guidance, because this is a difficult time for our people. It's a difficult time for our family. I'm going to kind of get a little bit off track here and talk about the day. The day is Sunday. The day that I was at home with my family, sleeping, and these alerts kept waking me up. And I looked at my phone and I had messages from my family. And a long-serving family member of ours has always taken the reins to be the leader of our family, but told me to call him through a text, so I did. And he told me what happened to my sister and to my nephew. That morning I couldn't think straight, and I was worried about the rest of my family, what was going on. So I told my wife, I gotta go. And I went alone to the crime scene. There I was phoning my niece O'Brien and asking him where he was. He was doing something that him and his family loved, which was horse racing out in another First Nations community that weekend, providing for his family. Driving to the community that day was the longest 2 hours of my life, not knowing what to expect. In the back of my mind, I thought about my family. What are they thinking? Hope they're holding each other, hugging each other, telling each other they love them. Those are my thoughts. When I got to the community, I went to the community health center and I asked where, what, who, and one of the community members said, "We're going over to see your sister." Brian had phoned me and said, "This is where he is." And for the people to know and understand this, it's probably a natural feeling for all of us to feel anger. That was my first initial thought. And it's okay to feel those feelings, but those feelings aren't going to solve anything. I've gotten a lot of advice over elders the last couple of days to grieve properly. And the support that I have for my family and all the people inside and outside of this room that have contacted us and sent their well wishes and they're thinking of us. And I basically told everybody, we've got to think of these 3 little boys that are here with us today, and Brian and Chuck, because they need our support. As much as it's hard for us to grieve, for a lot of people sitting in this room, you didn't know my sister. You didn't know my nephew. You don't know my family, and that's okay. And the reason it's okay is because it's a community coming together. The old saying goes, it takes a community to raise a child. And whether we're First Nations or non-First Nations people, we all got to come together to raise children, to make sure they all have a quality of life. And that's what my sister stood up for. That's what my nephew stood up for. One of the most things that has traumatized me through this whole process was the visual scene that I seen that day. When we got there, it must have been about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This incident happened probably anywhere from 6 to 7 in the morning. My first reaction when I got there was to go see my sister and my nephew. And touch her and hold her. Couldn't do that. None of our family could do that. Right outside of her home, she was killed by senseless acts. Her son, she was protecting her son. She was protecting these 3 little boys. This is why she's a hero. She's a true matriarch of the First Nations way of living, which is our women take care of our homes. The most shocking things right now is this piece. And please, I'm going to ask the media not to do this because it's not right. What you're about to hear is very serious. I told you about my sister and my nephew. The oldest boy, the second oldest boy, Dason, was also stabbed in the neck. He's here with us today. He survived. These children have seen everything that day. And they sit amongst you as people. And that's what we want you to know and understand. And I'm asking, out of respect, please leave them out of it. This is a serious time for our family. But when you think about what I just told you and the nonsense of how this act has destroyed our family, how can somebody do this to women and children? Words can't express the pain that we're feeling. Trying to piece it all together. Me and Brian were there all day watching, trying to get to our sister, asking the RCMP, and I have a lot of respect for the RCMP because what they did that day of processing the crime scene, forensic units, coroners, they had a big job that day within that community. As you've all heard, there was multiple scenes. There was 3 people at this scene, at my sister and Brian's house. That day, and can't get it out of my mind. Just to fast forward things a little bit, that night I went home. Wife asked me how I was doing. I was okay. Tried to sleep that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night just screaming, yelling. Because what I seen that day, can't get it out of my head. But I have to let people know that because this is how terrible that scene was. And I said this earlier, this is about, it reminded me of the movies, and to me this is not a movie, this is real life scenario about what happened to our family. My interpretation of what happened is what I'll give you today, but let me be honest in saying this, we don't really know what happened. We just know that our family members were killed in their own home, in their yard. That's what we know. When I got there, one of the ladies came up to me and I asked what happened. My sister was trying to phone for help. My sister phoned the actual lady we were talking to, and I don't want to send her, I don't want to say her name, the other one. The one that was helping us when we got there.
Oh, Rhonda.
So one of her good friends named Rhonda. Bonnie was actually trying to phone her, and Rhonda said I was sleeping. This was early in the morning. Because Rhonda was part of the community response team that goes to situations that happen like this in the community. Couldn't get a hold of Rhonda, she said, and got a hold of this other lady. And I'm not going to mention her name because the media has this already. But that lady went to our sister's house to try to help her and her son and her family. And she got killed. And when I spoke to Rhonda, she was first on the scene, I believe. Sean was also there too as well, to my understanding. And that's why I said we're just trying to piece this together, but it's not. Please don't listen to rumors, to innuendos. Please don't assume. When they got there, Jonesy, our nephew, our son, was laying there. He was already deceased. He was stabbed several times, I believe. My sister went out, tried to help her son, and I think she was stabbed 2 times. And she died right beside him. The lady that came there to help was an innocent person, trying to support her community, trying to help, and she died right there as well in the driveway. Things happened on the inside of the house that we have no access to right now because it's still an active crime scene, I believe. These kids, Brian, his entire family, left with nothing. They left without their IDs, bank cards, nothing. Everything's still in the house. When we were trying to focus and see what was going on, trying to piece all of this together, we watched our relative lay outside for 4 hours while, this is when I got there, from probably 7 in the morning to I think the body was released by the coroner by 5 in the afternoon. Those 4 hours that I was there from 1 to 5 were probably the longest 4 hours of our lives. Trying to make sense, trying to listen to people of what was going on and try to figure things out and understand why, trying to make sense of it. And when we think about why this happens, only people in that house knew what happened. Bonnie's not here to tell her story. Jonesy's is not here to tell her story. But the story is, we have 3 kids that survived this horrific trauma within our family. These 2 young boys woke up to screaming, not being able to help. One of the young boys was hiding behind a high chair watching everything unfold. I think after when these gentlemen left or whatever happened, I think they had to pass by their mom and that innocent lady and their brother laying outside. And they were taken away to family within the community to hold, to hug, to make sure they were safe. The 13-year-old boy was taken to hospital. He spent the night. And that young boy right now is angry. He's traumatized. So when we talk about what happened to the media, to everybody that's going to watch this, we don't know. And we want to leave it at that. We need the RCMP to do their work. We need to let the professionals do their work. And we need to support that work. Point fingers, we can't blame, can't look down on people. We just got to remember, these were victims of a serious crime. that's affected our family. Because the serious nature of this is something that I've never thought of. And I said, like I said to each and every one of you, I'm just a kid from the reserve, man, just a young boy. Never thought going through this, just like all of my other relatives sitting in this room. We didn't want this. We didn't ask for this. As our family sits amongst all of you, we are still continuing to help other families that are affected by this. That's the strength of our families, and really looking out and supporting. And I know my sister, our family members would want that. We have another journey right now, and that journey is to have the coroners release our family to us, so we can actually spend a couple more days with them before we lay them to rest. We don't know what day that is. We don't know when that's going to happen. But that's our next journey. Right now, what I've asked a good friend of our families is a lady by the name of Bonnie Leask, who's here today, if she can come up to the front. And I want Bonnie, what I want to do for our family is, because what we do at our organization is we support a lot of families through trauma of trying to deal with people's pain so they can have a quality of life. And right now, what I'm asking the general public is to not look down on our sister, on our nephew, but to see if there's a way within their families that they can actually support a GoFundMe to help these 3 young boys through their trauma. I've asked Bonnie and her team to set up a GoFundMe page, and I'm going to let her explain that, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Mark, and thank you from our family for all your support. We've had a number of calls for people reaching out to support the family in the best way they can, and after discussions with the family, they've started a GoFundMe page, and you can find it on the GoFundMe site under Remembering in Memory of Bonnie and Gregory under Shelley Arcand. My cousin Mark here spoke deeply and passionately about the supports that are going to be needed for all our families as we go through this, especially the 3 young boys and Bugsy as they carry on. And so we ask for your support. They're going to need some very, very supportive and solid mental and traumatic therapy as they go forward. So thank you. And I know that there has been some communication out of the James Smith Cree Nation about a GoFundMe. The family has talked to the leadership at James Smith Cree Nation to let them know that they are starting this fund for the boys and the family. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. When I look at the seriousness of this nature, all I can think about are these kids. I stand up here, I sit up here, and I show a picture of myself with my sister. It's no disrespect to my family or the other family, but they've got many, many pictures of them with Bonnie, with Gregory, and we're going to show those pictures when we gather as families. We're going to laugh and we're going to joke and we're going to remember. We're going to get on our healing journey, but it's going to take time. And we ask for that respect in time, because I just learned today that Gregory has 2 children of his own and a 3rd on the way. We want to support those kids as well, because they're part of our family. If there's any way we can support the foster children as well that Bonnie and Brian took care of in their home. That's what Bonnie loved to do, was to take care of kids. That was her passion. She was a matriarch of her family. And that's the Indigenous way. That's the First Nations way. But I also want you all to know this as well. Through our family, we have one of our aunties that's been affected by this traumatically, as she's related to 70 of these victims. That was her home community. So you can see the devastation of what this is to our family. And we say prayers and we say good thoughts for everyone that's affected by this, because it's affected our nations, our people, our communities. And when I think about my sister and her brother that's not here today, Sheldon, he's grieving in his own way. There's 3 of us. But my sister always grew up with our auntie and our uncle in PA. Grew up with her 3 cousins. I'm not going to mention their names. They know who they are. We took care of everybody. Now it's our job to step up and pay it forward and pay it back. Because those are the lessons our sister and our family have taught us. And when we think about how we're going to move forward, if we can support this GoFundMe page to support these kids, this is strictly for our family. This is strictly for the healing of these children that have faced a lot of trauma, for Brian and his family. We don't even know if this family can actually go home to their house because of what it looks like. I hope we can have another place for them to call home, to build their family and to have a place where they can start over, because there's a lot of trauma in that house, in that yard, in that community, and we understand that. To my understanding, these young boys want to stay in the community and be with their friends and go to school there, and that's what we're going to support, because that's what's going to make them happy. Well, we're going to help them build a future. And that future is to get the help they deserve so they can all have a quality of life like each and every one of us. I've asked Brian and Bonnie's dad if they want to say anything. They chose not to. And we respect that, because they're dealing with a lot. We're all dealing with a lot. And today we want to make it about our family member because we want the people to know she was a great mother. She had a great family. Her children were her priority. Her home was her priority. But she's never going to be forgotten. Didn't matter what you did in your life, she was proud of you. As we were all proud of her, because when I say we're proud of her, her family was first and foremost, and we all supported that, and she did a great job in raising her family. Like when me and Brian were talking that day, Mama Bear took care of her cubs. We could talk to her like that because she'd sit there and laugh and she'd joke back. I really didn't like being in a room with Bonnie and Brian though, because all they did was laugh at us and just continue to laugh and joke and just and tease, but that's who they were. I was always the brunt of some jokes, and I was okay, but I didn't have nothing on my sister, man. She was a great woman. Her life was cut short. Gregory's life was cut short. But as a family, we're going to carry on. We're going to carry on and get through this terrible tragedy that nobody wanted, nobody asked for, nobody woke up to. It still feels like it's a nightmare. It doesn't feel real. And the reason I say that is because me and Brian watched his family lay out there all day, and we couldn't do nothing. That's probably the hardest thing that I wouldn't wish on any one of my family members to see, to live through. When we think about people passing away from natural causes, those are still hard, but we find a way to get through this. This is really hard. This is really hard. You know, even when I think about my own family at home, my wife April and her mom and dad, her sister here, my daughter, they've been so supportive through this whole process. Trying to let me help. Giving me advice that I gotta grieve. People, in our office that I work for, ask why I'm still at work. And why I'm still at work is because I've been taught by my family. We need to help other families. We show humbleness, we show support, we show love, we show compassion, because we're there for everyone. In closing, we ask the media if you want to ask me questions, we'll do this without everybody not being here. But we really want to focus on my sister as being a hero, my nephew being a hero. They actually died trying to save the rest of their family. That's my perception of what I see and what I've seen. But again, we still don't know the truth. I want to thank all of our friends, all of our families that are here with us today, sharing your hugs, sharing your love, sharing your support. Not just our family, but many other people out there need the support of this community, this province, and this country right now. And when we look at this, please show respect to our family. And some of our family members don't want to be having pictures taken of them, especially to our nephews, our children. We've got to focus. If anybody wants to ask me anything, there's other family members that want to come and stand in front of the media. You're welcome to. It's not about me, it's about our people. And we'll do the best we can to give you the answers that the people are searching for. And we've gotten a lot of calls how people can help. I want to thank Bonnie and her team for creating a GoFundMe page. If you can help, great. Just by you saying you support, by sending text messages, you don't know how much that means to all of us. And we thank you for that. We thank you for the prayers. We thank you for the condolences. We thank you for the love. We thank you for your friendship. And we thank you for being with us here today, for honoring our family members, because it was our responsibility as a family to come and speak on behalf of our family. And we pray for all the other families that are affected out there. And we hope they can find support and closure as well, moving forward through this traumatic experience. Because it's going to take a community to come together. And that community is this province and this country. So with that, I want to thank you on behalf of Brian, Chuck, the children, the family that are here today. We really do appreciate your support. We thank you for your generosity. We thank you for your kindness. We thank you for respecting our family's wishes at this time, as we still got a steep hill to climb. But we're going to climb it together, and we're going to climb it united. And we're going to be there for each other. And we thank you all for your support. So Nanaskaman, thank you on behalf of our families for being here today. And we wish you all the best. Hi, Nanaskaman. So for media, is there any other questions, comments? Yes, no, just by, so just we'll do this after. We'll ask the family if they want to be part of it. Whoever wants to stay can stay, but we'll ask them to please, if they want to leave. Thanks, guys, for being here. I really do appreciate everything, right? So. No, I'm just bugging. See if you can see our little nephew is still trying to feed me here, and he's just laughing and joking. That's healing. That's so. Thanks thanks to the media for being very patient with us and understanding. So I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions for me, please.
Sir, thank you again so much for having us and opening us up just like this. It really means a lot. I'm wondering how you feel about the fact that Miles was allowed to be walking the streets. If you have a message for the parole board, the government of Canada, what you're feeling about how the fact that he was still out and allowed to be paroled, that they determined that he should no longer be behind bars.
So I'm going to ask you again respectfully. We're not going to talk about that. It's not what it is. And I appreciate your questions. I understand your role. I understand that. But I think you got to understand our role, which is about our family. And, I really do appreciate it. That's not my place to talk about it right now. I'm not putting on my work hat. I'm putting on my family hat. And that's going to come first and foremost. So I'm sorry I don't have a comment for that. Thank you.
We're talking about a GoFundMe page, of course, it focuses on the victims. Has that been set up yet, or how can people help?
Yes, that has been set up right now. I'm not sure where Bonnie is.
It has been set up and it's live now.
So
You can look under Shelley Arcand or Bonnie Goodwin.
And those funds are dedicated towards the kids, is that right? Or do you know that?
yes, so the GoFundMe page is strictly for our family and really focusing on the trauma that our family has faced. And the reason why we need this is because we see how trauma affects people. I look at myself and the trauma that I faced through myself growing up, and I still haven't dealt with a lot of things. So right now, when I look at these kids, they went through a lot worse than I did, and a lot of other people did. And right now, the focus is on them to get them as much support. So when they go home back to their community, wherever they decide to lay their head and be a family again, it'll be for supports to bring them into Saskatoon to seek some really good professional help and have somebody there to support them in what they need to do. This is directly for them, to support them, and I think it's necessary. And thank you for that question, because this is a tall task ahead of us. And I think it's very courageous of our family to go out there and ask for the support, because we're people just like you, just like everybody else. And there's people out there that care. There's people out there that are concerned. And when I think about how we can help, it's by helping these children so they can have a quality of life. So I thank you for your question, and really do support that. And we're going to be very transparent in this funding, because it's for them to travel, to come and see, pay for whatever we got to pay for. And this is not just a one-day treatment. This is going to be some long-term treatment that they need, and Brian and his family need. Because what I've explained today goes unsaid of how horrific and terrible it was. And for people that have never been through this, you never want to go through this. It's really hard. It's really tough. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Next. Sorry, we had a question over here.
Yeah. I'd like to ask, could you share maybe a favorite memory of this year, a time when you think is forever happiest?
Well, she said I was the best. No. See, this is healing, right? This is part of our healing, man. It's just like, I don't know. There's so many to talk about, right? You know, you can ask any one of our family members. It's, you know, the thing that I miss the most is we always set up times around Christmas time to come to Saskatoon and meet with our side of the family, right? And because she was with her side of the family, right, in the community, right? So she'd bring the boys, we'd rent a hall, we'd do that, we'd laugh, we'd eat, we'd exchange presents, that kind of stuff, right? So last time we did that was before the pandemic, and it was at my house in Saskatoon. And we have a family picture that we're going to cherish very closely. And those are the best times. There's many of them, but thank you for asking. Sorry. We haven't crossed that bridge yet, just because we don't know what's happening in their community, right? I think there's opportunity to rebuild, but again, I say this: if you've been through a traumatic experience, maybe that's not the best place to live. Because from what we've seen, you know, outside where the kids are going to play, that's not healthy, right? So we've got to find a situation where we can work with the community and how we can do something different, because the kids want to stay with their friends, they want to stay with their family, and we support that, right? But if we can all come together and say, what's the best place? We don't have an answer for that today yet. Like, wherever we can support, the family has had a lot of support right now in staying away from the community, because, like I said, I don't even know if they can get into their house yet. I wouldn't, my best advice is the kids shouldn't go there, right? We've got to find a different place and focus on what's best for the kids and move forward, because Brian's family is an extended family, and they'll do what we want to do, which is all work together to find out what's best for the kids moving forward. So unfortunately, we don't have a location, but hopefully that'll come. Like I said, we've got a hill to climb right now, which is stay with our family here at the next couple days, and then lay them to rest, and have a celebration of life, and some laughs, and get through this difficult time. So hope that helps. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Lee.
Thank you so much for your time. My sincere condolences to your family. I'm just wondering, Mark, if you might be able to touch on the role that intergenerational trauma is playing in all this, and what you would like to see, or what your hope is to bring healing.
So when we talk about intergenerational trauma, we've all been affected it through our entire family, through Brian's family, through my family, through Chuck's family. It's a serious situation. So when I talk about the trauma, this is what we need supports in to deal with that trauma, right? Now, when we look at what's moving forward in this new generation of these young boys, they've experienced another on top of that trauma, if that makes sense. And this is where we really got to focus on long-term, sustainable healing for everyone, right? Like, when I talk about intergenerational trauma, I talk about the support from elders that I've been getting, right? That really helps, but I think we've got to look at different avenues, and whatever the family chooses, whether it's elders or Western medicine, whatever it may be. We're going to utilize whatever we can to help the kids and the family get to a healthy place, so they can be productive citizens and have a quality of life and focus on education and build their own families and their grandchildren. And that's what we want for them. And I think as a family, we're going to help them get there. Whatever it takes, we're going to help them get there. Thank you. Sorry, there's a question over here.
So I want to say sorry for your loss of your family members, but you had mentioned what the media can do. What about the rest of Canada, the rest of the world? What can we do to be more sensitive to your family and for the James Smith community? How can we help?
Well, I think how the media can help is, let's not focus on the negative. Focus on what I call today heroes, right? Senseless crimes took heroes away from our families, from our communities, right across the board. And at the end of the day, when I think about the strength of media, the strength of our voices, sometimes media only picks certain things and puts it in there. For our family, we wanted to show the rest of the world that Bonnie and her son were important. They were great people. They lived a good life. They were so rich in family. And that's what made them who they were. And when I think about this is what we ask the media, is to focus on the victims, because the victims have to be lifted up. That's going to help the healing process. That's going to help give us strength. It's going to help us through a difficult time, through all of this. And hopefully it helps the community as well. Sorry, I had another question over here and then here. Thank you.
You know, even in times like this, the family is still able to share some moments of laughter. What do moments like that mean going forward in the healing process?
Man, words can't explain what that does for the healing process. Like, you know, as much tears that are flowing, and, you know, it's part of the grieving process, but being with family and sitting down and having a meal and just, you know, talking and just remembering is the most important thing. We focus on, and I can say probably other families, non-Indigenous family, is coming together and being in a place that makes you comfortable, right? Whether it's your home or a hall or, you know, and even a day at the scene, me and Brian were trying to make each other laugh, even though we've seen something that I would never wish upon anybody to see. And talk about and just try to slowly heal through laughter, through being together, and sharing this that experience with my brother-in-law is something that I'll never forget, because he couldn't do this alone. And I was glad to be there for him, even though it was difficult. But laughter is our biggest healing, and we're going to get through it. We're going to get through our culture. Culture is another big piece of what we've got to work on. You've seen our elder here today smudging everybody, and that people are lining up because it's who we are. And we ask people to understand that and to respect that and to support that. And if some of us choose not that, we support that as well. But I want to thank you for that question, because laughter is good, and that's how we remember, and that's how we're going to continue to move forward. So thank you. Yes.
Hi, Mark.
Yep.
You've mentioned you still don't know what happened, you still don't have the answers. But how are these answers important in your healing journey to know, to go to the bottom of it?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
How is getting all the answers you still don't have about what happened, how are they important in your healing journey?
That's a good question, because we're all looking for those same answers. We sit in this room, we sit in our homes, we don't know. We don't know what happened. There's rumors, there's innuendos, we don't know. Maybe we'll never know. And that's the hardest part of all of this. And trying to understand that this is a serious situation, and that's why I said earlier, when I look at what I'm trying to piece together for my family and for all of our families, is to have a good understanding, because we weren't there that day. There was only X amount of people in the house. Until they're ready to speak, maybe we'll get some answers then. Maybe we'll get some answers from RCMP. Maybe we'll get why. But right now, we're more focused on our family healing. When those answers come, it'll help. May not be the answer we want to hear, it may be the answer we want to hear, but it'll help. And we've got to really focus on what we know in front of us, which is our families are strong, our families are supportive, and we're going to hold each other up and lift each other up to get through this together. So, thank you. So, somebody else had a question here. Was that in the back? Sorry.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today. What kind of lessons are you hoping that you learn from this in terms of preventing, future tragedies?
Oh man. See, again, I'm crossing into a bridge where I don't want to cross right now, because the only bridge that I want to cross is, I would never wish this on anyone. People don't realize, maybe they have a good idea, but they don't realize the pain, the trauma, the hurt. And when I think about my sister and our nephew, our son, they were in their house. A place where we all go to sleep at night thinking we'll be safe. Trying to comprehend and trying to understand. And I said earlier, I woke up yelling that same night because I kept thinking about what they went through, what I heard. And when I went back to sleep, my mind won't shut off about what I seen and what I heard. And when you think about your homes, you hope your homes are safe. How do you prevent that? I don't have an answer to that, because I don't know. We all think, doesn't matter if we're First Nations or non-First Nations. Every home is supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be filled with love, with compassion, with support. And that's what this home had. And I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry, but I hope, and I know every home is like that. Within our families, all of our families, and in your families, we know that. But hopefully answers will come out, and there's a way we can prevent all of this stuff happening in any community, right? So I hope that helps. Couple more, anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Mark, there's been talk about how the subsequent alerts in other communities have re-traumatized people. How have you been dealing with that, and what advice do you give to people, turning those alerts off? What do you recommend? I mean, people want to be aware, but...
Yeah, I knew somebody was going to ask that question. So I'm going to tell you my story about when you talk about trauma, and it's going to be different for different people, but this day, I've been sober for 22 years of my life. I was an alcoholic and an extreme alcoholic, and I quit cold turkey just because it destroyed my children's lives, their mom's life, and I became a better person. And in my situation, when you talk about trauma. That day I wanted to turn to alcohol. I wanted to turn to it so bad that I could taste it. I was by myself. I could have did whatever I wanted to do that day. The more I stayed at that scene and seeing what I seen, the more it drove me to thinking like that. What I tell people is this: I had a choice. I could choose to fight or I could flight. And I'm proud to say I've been fighting this since this day happened to now, because it's not going to help my family. It's not going to help anybody's family. And we all deal with trauma in different ways. And my way is dealing it with my family, with hugs, with loves, with supporting each other, because that's not going to bring back our loved ones. And they wouldn't want that for us. So when you talk about the severity of trauma, it's affected us greatly, and it's deeply entrenched in what I do. And right now, I'm trying to focus on my job of helping other people that still need our help, focusing on my family, focusing on my extended family. But we all have trauma in different ways, and I encourage people not to go that way because it's not going to help the situation. And so, hope that answers your question. Yes, go ahead.
You spoke yesterday that you had talked with Chief Wally Burns and James Smith Cree Nation. Now you described that as kind of a chief-to-chief conversation. And what you kind of told us today, can you talk a little bit more maybe about how the conversation was when it was Mark speaking to Wally?
Yeah, so Chief Wally Burns reached out to me, asked me what I was going to do with our family. Brian is a relative of Wally, Chief Wally Burns, and we gave clear instructions about we will be speaking on behalf of our family, and we'll be doing that this morning, and asked them to respect that, and they did. And I really do appreciate Chief Wally Burns and the community for understanding that we have a responsibility as a family to step up and to support one another, and they're dealing through a lot right now. They are. And if we can lessen the burden by us having that responsibility on our shoulders, which we can take care of, even though it's difficult for all of us. That was a conversation we had, but we also had a conversation about helping his members that are still in the city here, that are victims in hospital in critical condition, of how we can work as our organization to support that. And he was really appreciative of us taking the lead. We have our CEO and our COO leading that charge right now, just because I'm a little bit out of commission, if that makes sense, but they're there supporting and helping other people during this difficult time, and we're taking that on as an organization, and Chief Wally really supported that, and we told him that Saskatoon Tribal Council has their back, we'll support their people, and he supported us in regards to our family doing this. This is why we're doing this here today in Saskatoon, because there's a lot going on, and we want them to focus and help as many people as they can, because we're just hoping we can all work together to find a resolve to this. So, thank you. Last question, anyone? Yes.
I just want to make sure that I have this information correct. Bonnie has 4 sons.
4 sons. Yes.
One of them was killed.
Yes.
One was independent.
Yes.
And all 4 boys were home at the time.
Yes. along with 2 foster children, I believe, right? So there was 6 kids, and right now I think there's supports for the 2 foster children that are in that situation. But again, we're going to try to help those children as well, because they were part of Bonnie and Brian's family, right? So you can see just by that statement there that Bonnie was a loving, caring mother that took care of people, and that's what she installed in all of us. And we're going to miss her. We really are. So I hope that helps. Yes, ma'am.
Could you just give us spelling
Of who? So my name is Mark Arcand, Markarcand. Brian Burns, Brian Bruns. Chuck, Chuck. Good Voice, Goodvoice. And Sean Burns, sorry, Sean. Sean, SHAWNBURNS. So Brian is the husband, Chuck is the father of and the grandfather, and Sean's an extremely close family friend, and he's been supporting Brian through this whole process. So we thank him and wish him all the best for the stuff we're going to go through. So is that it? Well,
Can I just ask why, how Gregory got his nickname?
Jonesy.
Always eating.
He's always eating.
Jughead Jones.
Jughead Jones. So, yeah.
I love that.
But that's our way, and that's what we're going to remember, right? And just really thank you for asking that question, because that's family to us, and that means a lot. So just thank you for that. So I just want to end by saying thank you to all the media for being here today. I hope this helps. I know this is one of many families, but we're only speaking on behalf of our family, and I hope you respect that. I thank you for understanding, and I thank you for traveling great distances to be this. And we're not asking for fame or glory. That's not what we're asking. We're asking for kindness, for respect, and for understanding in a difficult time for our family. So with that, I'm asking in. Thank you very much, and have a great day, everyone. Hi, hi.